Tucker Carlson was not having it at all after the decision came in and the jury decided to convict Derek Chauvin in the killing of George Floyd. Carlson was not happy at all that a cop was found guilty of killing George Floyd. And it bothers him so much that when a former NYPD cop is invited to his show and shocks Tucker Carlson, obviously, because he wouldn't have had this guy on anyway, by saying that this was actually a case where, in his opinion, a police officer crossed the line. Carlson was not having it.
The scene. I just think that it was excessive and it shouldn't happen. And what I'd like to say,
the guy who did it looks like he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So I'm kind of more worried about the rest of the country, which, thanks to police inaction, in case you haven't noticed, is like boarded up. So that's more my concern. But I appreciate you coming on, Ed Gavin. Thank you. Nope, done. Thank you.
He feisty there. He's not happy that a guest didn't toe the company line there, right? You know, what is he talking about, boarded up? I live in New York City. Yes, there were places boarded up in the weeks after George Floyd was killed and the protests were at their height. Places have not been boarded up for, how long's it been? Almost a year. What is he talking about? What is he talking about? And the crime he's worried about, obviously he's talking about places boarded up. So he's obviously worried about property damage and crime against property, destruction of property, because that's the important stuff. Never mind, a man was killed on the street with a knee to his neck. That sort of crime has been down. It's been down. It's on a trajectory down. In fact, most crimes have been on a downslide year after year. We are at all-time lows when it comes to the crime rate in this country. They keep, usually you hear these guys talking about the bad old days. We're headed back to the bad old days, the 70s, 80s, 90s. Look at a chart. Look at every single expert analysis of crime rates across the country. There's one specific type of crime that's up, but he's not talking about that one here. He's clearly worried about property. I'll get to the other one later, but clearly talking about property here. And Tucker Carlson, I guess when you get the combination of a former cop disagreeing with him and not towing the line, a white cop convicted of killing a black man, and in his mind, just rampant property damage, what happens is Tucker Carlson turns into the Joker. Apparently. What was with that laugh? Lost his mind.
The scene. I just think
he lost his mind.
Boarded up? So that's more my concern.
That's more his concern. The boarded up buildings is his concern. Not accountability for the death of a human being. And that's not all we'll see from Tucker Carlson on this episode, because I got another Tucker Carlson clip. Let's start with his professional monologue, his more, calmer toned intellectual. He has this intellectual thinking cap on. Here's Tucker Carlson.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. The jury in the Derek Chauvin trial came to a unanimous and unequivocal verdict this afternoon. Please don't hurt us. The jurors spoke for many in this country. Everyone understood perfectly well the consequences of an acquittal in this case. After nearly a year of burning and looting and murder by BLM, that was never in doubt. Last night, 2,000 miles from Minneapolis, police in Los Angeles preemptively blocked roads. Why? They knew what would happen if Derek Chauvin got off. In the end, he didn't get off. If given the maximum sentence under the law, he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Is that a fair punishment? Is the officer guilty of the specific crimes for which he was just convicted? We can debate all that, and over this hour we will. But here's what we can't debate. No mob has the right to destroy our cities. Not under any circumstances, not for any reason. No politician or media figure has the right to intimidate a jury. And no political party has the right to impose a different standard of justice on its own supporters. Those things are unacceptable in America. All of them are happening now. If they continue to happen, decent, productive people will leave. The country as we knew it will be over. So we must stop this current insanity. It's an attack on civilization. At stake is far more than the future of Derek Chauvin or the memory of George Floyd. At stake is America.
Right, at stake is America. Did Tucker Carlson have that same take when thousands of Trump supporters stormed Washington, D.C.? Did he have that same take at the property damage occurred at the hands of the Trump mob? Did he have that same take about swaying a jury when that pro-Trump mob showed up at the Capitol building to try to force Mike Pence to overturn the results of the presidential election? Was that his take, or was his take sort of like, this thing is, this is making a big deal out of nothing. Nothing happened here. Future of America isn't at stake by a handful of people trying to overturn the results of an election. No. Of course not. You know, this guy, he really, all of these guys I played tonight, all of these right-wingers who I've shown you tonight, they are all convinced that Derek Chauvin was taken and made an example of. And everything we know about the entire history of how this goes down when it comes to police accountability when they kill somebody flies in the face of what they're saying. Because there's been protests and riots for years and years and decades and decades. And like that viewer pointed out, since 2005, only 7 cops have been convicted of murder. Truly amazing to see these guys tie themselves in knots here.